Hi, I'm Kari Carr with New Leaf Stitches, and I'd like to share with you a little bit about my notion, the Clearly Perfect Angle, and some of the new features that it has so that you can do more with it than you already are. The Clearly Perfect Angle is a vinyl material that just stays in place with static, like a window cling, and you don't need to tape anything. It conforms to different sizes of machines and shapes of machines, and it has some features on it that will make drawing or sewing those 45-degree angles a lot easier because you never ever have to draw a line. I'm going to move over here and just show you some of the features of the Clearly Perfect Angle. This is where your needle would be, and I have 1/4 inch seam guides on each side of center, and there's also 5/8 inch seam guides on each side of center. Originally those were placed there for garment sewing, but I'll show you in a little bit how you can do another little technique with that. It's been very important that people understand all the different things that they can do with the Clearly Perfect Angle, but you have two basic techniques. One is where you sew from point to point, and the other is where you sew 1/4 inch on each side of center. So on the product itself, there's actually an alignment key that you can refer to whenever you're sewing. So for instance, if we're sewing from point to point, we're going to find the letters A, and they're on these bottom of these green bands and also on the center line. So as an example for sewing this, we would just take our fabric, we would line it up on the A's, and our point would be on the center line, and the trick with this is to watch the point as you're stitching and not the needle, and you would begin sewing straight up that line, and that basic technique, you would trim that, and then you would have your 1/4 or you would have your half square triangle. Now a little tip for that is usually these are waist, but we're going to take that 5/8 inch seam, and if you have a pattern that tells you to sew straight across, we'll line it up on the A's, we'll do that, but then instead of cutting it at that point, we're going to move our fabric over to those dotted 5/8 inch lines, put our points on that, and we'll begin stitching again 5/8 inches away. Now what we will do is we'll cut that apart. Here is the half square triangle your pattern called for, and now instead of throwing this away or putting it away thinking you're going to do something with it later, you already have a half square triangle ready to square up and put into an extra project for you. Another little tidbit I'd like to share with you is leave the Clearly Perfect Angle in place all the time. It actually will last longer that way, but you can use it for joining bindings. So instead of either guessing at that angle or drawing a line, what we'll do is we'll extend our fabric a little bit past each other, and it creates an inverted point here and an inverted point there. We'll take this fabric strips to our machine. We put one at the needle, those inverted points. Again, we're going straight across, so we want to be on that center line. We watch that inverted point go straight up and through that line, and when we're done, we would trim that, and we will have joined our bindings at a perfect 45-degree angle. The second technique, which is used most often, is the one where they tell you to sew 1/4 inch on each side of center. So now we're going to have the letter B. We have a B here. You'll notice that there's a B with an arrow pointing to the outside of the angled gray band, and there's a B with an arrow pointing to the outside angle, or the outside edge of the vertical gray band. We're going to take our fabric strips and we are going to place them on those B's. Now you'll notice when we're on the outside edge of the angled gray band, the point is also on the outside of that angled gray band. And again, watch that as you're stitching, and you're going to sew straight up and through. You'll have sewn 1/4 inch from that point. Simply turn it around, reposition it so that you are on the outside edge of the gray or those B lines, and your point is on the outside of the gray down there, and you would stitch your second line, and of course then you would cut those apart and you would have your two half square triangles. Now that you know all of the fun things that you can do with a Clearly Perfect Angle, let's back up and talk about how you would put it on your machine. Very, very easy to do. Obviously you're going to take it off this backing and you're going to bring it to your machine. But what you would do, and it's easier to see on here, you would take your machine needle and you would pierce the vinyl right at the place that's actually indicated on the product, and you're going to pierce the vinyl and leave your needle in the down position. That creates a pivot point, and then you're just simply going to line up these 1/4 inch seam guides and the 5/8 inch seam guides with the faceplate on your machine. And when those are running parallel and matched up, you simply just press this flat and it's already aligned. And you don't need to keep that key or keep a key or anything like that. The next thing that you do need to do is you need to remove this area for your feed dogs. And this is where you customize it for your machine. So once it's down and in place, what you're going to do is you're going to take a sharp seam ripper, you're going to pierce the vinyl, and you're going to just follow around each side the shape of your particular feed dog, and then you would remove this vinyl to free up your feed dogs. So again, it's customizable to your machine. Sometimes you may need to cut out a little bit more if the points are catching underneath because you have a little curve to your machine, but that's okay. Just continue trimming it until it works to your advantage. But once it's in place, leave it in place. You'll have a great time using it, saving lots and lots of time, not having to draw those lines. And I want to invite you to check out Fat Quarter Shop to pick up your Clearly Perfect angle.